Hi guys, how are you doing? I hope well. Let's start our lesson now. In our previous video, we learned about financial needs of business and we divided source of finance into two, internal and external source of finance. And we learned about internal source of finance. And today, in this video, we are going to have a look of the external source of finance. So what's the meaning of external sources? These are sources of funds that are obtained from individuals or institutions outside of the business. So the most common examples of external finance are as follows. First one is issue of shares. Issue of shares are selling shares to the public and only possible for limited companies. The advantages of issue of shares are as follows. So here, a permanent source of capital which doesn't need to be repaid to the shareholders and no interest is paid, but dividends are paid to the shareholders and dilution of control due to the new owners. Second one is bank loans. Bank loan is the money borrowed from the bank which is returned with interest in short. And it's good because usually quick to arrange can be for varying lengths of time. Large companies benefit from the financial economies of scale, getting lower interest rates for borrowing large sums, but has to be paid and interest must be paid. Security or collateral is often required. This is a guarantee to the bank to ensure the bank that the amount loaned will be paid back. Third one is the debentures. Debenture is the long-term loan certificates issued by limited companies. Debentures can be used to raise very very long-term finance, for example, for 25 years or more. But as these loans, this must be paid and interest must be paid. Next one is factoring of debts. Debt factors are specialist agencies that buy the debts of firms for immediate cash, and they may offer, for example, 90% of the value of an existing debt and collect it from the debtor for the full amount, hence making it 10% of profit. And immediate cash is made available. The risk of collecting the debts will no longer be ours, but will be the factors. But the firm doesn't receive 100% of the value of its debts. Fifth one is grants and subsidies from outside agencies. Outside agencies like the government or non-for-profit institutions can support businesses by giving funds in the form of grants or subsidies. They don't have to be repaid, so it's good for us. But there are also problems like they're often given with conditions that the business has to comply with. For example, location choices or employment preferences or etc. And last one is microfinancing. In many low-income developing countries, traditional commercial banks have been very unwilling to lend to poor people because the small size of the loan means that the business will not make a profit and that the poorer groups in society can't afford a collateral. The institutions that lend the poorer people money can include postal savings bank, finance cooperatives, credit unions, and development banks. Advantage of microfinancing is that specialist institutions have been set up in most developing countries to meet the financial needs of poor people, especially poor entrepreneurs. This lowers unemployment and helps in raising the standards of living of the people. However, the profit generated is very low to the microfinancers because the size of the investment is very low. And there is a risk on non-payment by the borrowers since the chances of failure are higher than most. So we already looked at source of finance. We divided into internal and external. And here are what ways the common examples of external finance. and the common examples of internal finance. Splitting funds in terms of longevity. We split funds in terms of short-term and long-term finance. So what's the meaning of short-term fund? Short-term fund provides the working capital needed by businesses for day-to-day operations. It's finance needed for 1 to 3 years. And shortage of cash in the short term can be overcome in 3 main ways. And the first one is overdrafts. Overdrafts are arranged by the bank, and the bank gives the business the right to overdraw its bank account, or in other words, spend more than what is currently in it. And the firm can use this finance to pay expenses, but can't do this indefinitely. It's flexible because you can overdraft every month a different amount, and interest will be paid on only the overdrawn amount. Cheaper than loans, it's good, but however, interest rates are variable, unlike most loans which have fixed rates, and the bank can ask for the overdraft to be paid at a very short notice. Second one is trade credit. This is when a business delays paying off its suppliers, which leaves the business in a better cash position. It's almost an interest-free loan to the business for the length of time that payment is delayed for. However, the supplier may refuse to give discounts or even refuse to supply any more goods if payment is not made quickly. Last one is factoring of debts. Debt factors are specialist agencies that buy the debts of firms for immediate cash. And for example, they may offer, for example, 90% of the value of an existing debt and collect it from the debtor for the full amount, hence making a 10% of profit. And immediate cash is made available. The risk of collecting the debts will no longer be ours, but will be the factors. But the firm doesn't receive 100% of the value of its debts. So what's the meaning of long-term fund? Long-term fund is finance that is available for over 3 years, and this purchases long-term fixed assets, update or expand the businesses, or finance a takeover of another firm. The main sources of long-term finance are as follows. The first one is bank loans. Bank loan is the money borrowed from the bank that is returned with interest, and it's usually quick to arrange, can be for varying lengths of time. Large companies benefit from the financial economies of scale, getting lower interest rates for borrowing large sums. But they have disadvantages also. So has to be repaid, interest must be paid, security or collateral is often required. This is a guarantee to the bank to ensure the bank that the amount loaned will be paid back. Next one is hire purchase. This allows a business to buy a fixed asset over a long period of time with monthly payments, which include an interest charge. The plus side of hire purchase is that the firm doesn't have to find a large cash sum to purchase this asset, but minuses are that the cash deposit is paid at the start of the period and interest payments can be quite high. Next one is leasing. Leasing an asset allows the firm to use an asset, but it doesn't have to purchase it. Monthly leasing payments are made, and the business could decide to purchase the asset at the end of the leasing period. Some businesses decide to sell off some fixed assets for cash and lease them back from the leasing company. This is called sale and lease back. Advantages of leasing are as follows. The firm doesn't have to find a large cash sum to purchase the asset to start with, and the care and maintenance of the asset are carried out by a leasing company. The disadvantage of leasing is that the total cost of the leasing charge will be higher than purchasing the asset. The next one is issue of shares. Issue of shares are selling shares to the public and only possible for limited companies. Their advantages are shown here. A permanent source of capital which doesn't need to be repaid to the shareholders, and no interest is paid. Disadvantages are that dividends are paid to the shareholders, dilution of control due to the new owners. Dividends are paid after tax, whereas interest on loans is paid before taxes deducted, and the balance of ownership can be affected by a large share issue. Next one is debentures. Debentures, long-term loan certificates issued by limited companies are called as the debentures. Debentures can be used to raise very long-term finance, for example, for 25 years or more. But as with loans, this must be repaid and interest must be paid. So it's time to finish. We have to conclude. So sources of finance are divided into short-term and long-term. Short-term sources of finance are divided into three main points: overdrafts, trade credits, and factoring of debts. And long-term finance are as follows, like bank loans, hire purchase, leasing, issue of shares, and debentures. So here is the homework. Here is an activity. So in this activity, you have to consider all of the following sources of finance. Are they short-term or long-term sources of finance? Copy out the table and tick the relevant column for each source, and you have to send it to me by EduPage. Please, guys, do your homeworks and keep me updated if you didn't understand anything. And also, please try to keep participate, and the students who didn't submit their business plans, please, I'm waiting for you. Please submit it as soon as possible because I have to put some marks and I have to fix it. So take care of yourself and wash your hands often. See you next time. Bye bye.